So, it seems as though something has led you to the campsite of the Orator. Well, as you can see, I've stoked the fire, which means it's time for you to pull up your chair, settle in, because tonight I have another tale to tell. You know, the concept of dying is one of the most terrifying things in the world. In fact, if you ask people what their biggest fear is, right at the tippy top of that list, it's the concept of dying. They're terrified of it. People are worried about the inevitability of it or not knowing when or how. It's just such a big unknown. It's one of the biggest questions there is. But what would you do if you were somehow given a second chance? If you experienced your death only to wake up moments later to discover that somehow you're still alive? But before we begin, if you find yourself enjoying this kind of content, first-hand, true accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, then allow the spirits to guide your planchette to both the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload new content, which is every single day. I upload shorts all 7 days of the week, and then I do long-form videos both Monday and Friday. All of that is at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Second, all of my stories are true first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal. Today's story comes from us from Liquid Gold 83 at Reddit, and I will make sure to link his story below. But my whole channel, it runs on first-hand true accounts of supernatural and paranormal stories. Without new, fresh stories, I can't continue to tell new, fresh stories. So, if you or anybody you know has a story that you think would fit well on my channel, please reach out to me on any of my social media, and I will find time to reach out to you. We'll collect the story, figure out how to do that, and then potentially one day, I could feature it here on The Orator. And now, with all of that out of the way, let's get on to today's story. It is a tale that I call I Just Died. So Evan is in his late 20s, he's married, they own a house, life is great. And one day, in the late evening, he gets this call from his neighbor. Now, he's known this neighbor for years, they've lived next to each other, and they get along quite well, they're pretty close. And so his neighbor is asking Evan if he'll come over and help him move a bed upstairs. His neighbor's mom has fallen ill, and she has this bed that's one of those, it does temperature and stiffness and all of that kind of stuff right on the bed. And so it's got one of these really heavy metal frames that has a battery and all of this mechanics attached to it, and then the actual bed itself. And they can be extremely heavy. So his neighbor says, look, if you can pop over and help me move this thing upstairs, I'd really appreciate it. And his neighbor, Evan's neighbor, has been just an awesome neighbor the whole time, and so he's happy to do it. So Evan pops on his shoes, he runs next door to his neighbor's house, and he goes inside. Now, Evan's neighbor also has a friend there who's a priest. And so Evan introduces himself. It's the first time they've ever met. And they have a little bit of a conversation, and then they get to work. They first go to this bed, and they kind of have to figure out how to separate the mattress from the bed frame and then break the bed frame apart because it's such a heavy, unwieldy thing that it's going to be impossible to get it upstairs until they break it down. And so Evan and his neighbor and their friend, the priest friend, they spend a few minutes figuring this whole thing out, and eventually they do break it down into enough pieces and then haul them all upstairs into this bedroom. And so Evan, he takes the bed into the bedroom, and he gets a pretty good layout of this bedroom. There's already some stuff on the floor, and there's this ornate headboard that's already sitting against the wall, and there's just all of these different things around the bedroom. They finish that, he exits, and he's about ready to head home when all of a sudden Evan's neighbor says, hey, I also have this armoire outside. You're already here. Would you mind? And Evan says, of course not. Like you said, I'm already here. It would be silly to do this and then some other time come move the armoire. And so this armoire, it's not inside it needs to be moved upstairs. It's actually outside. Evan's neighbor, he found it, and he has one of these traveling trailers that he sometimes has with him, and it's in that. And so Evan, his neighbor, and the priest friend, they all go down, and they open up this trailer, and there's this big, heavy wooden armoire. They grab it, and they pull it over to the front of Evan's neighbor's house, and the house, to get into the front door, has 11 steps from the sidewalk all the way up to the front door of the house. And so Evan is on the bottom, and he picks up and lifts, and he's pushing it up. Meanwhile, Evan's neighbor and his friend the priest are grabbing it from the top, and they're pulling it up. And they're starting to slowly move up these stairs, and they get about halfway, and Evan has about 6 stairs left to go, when all of a sudden, Evan's neighbor and the priest friend lose their grip on this armoire, this heavy wooden armoire, and it comes crashing down these steps towards Evan, hits him full on, and Evan falls backwards with this armoire on him all the way down these other 5 steps and crashes onto the cement at the bottom. Now this would instantly kill him. This armoire is hundreds of pounds, and it's crushing his body into the cement below from all the way up on these stairs. But instead of any of that happening, the moment that Evan and this armoire impact the cement, Evan all of a sudden wakes up at his kitchen table, and it's early evening, right around the time he received that phone call, and he has a full memory of the entire day leading all the way up to when the neighbor called and going over there. Every single thing is vivid. He did not take a nap, and this is not some kind of dream he's just woken up from. He remembers the entire thing. It is an event that happened, and now suddenly he's awake at his kitchen table, and the thing that woke him up is his cell phone ringing. And his wife is in the kitchen with him. She says, "Hey, are you going to get that?" And she says it in such a way that it's not like Evan was just sleeping. It's almost like he was just sitting there at the kitchen table while his phone rang, and he was just sitting there, listening to it, waiting, not picking up. And so his wife says, "Hey, are you going to get there? Or are you just going to stand there and look at the phone?" And Evan, it's like, he's totally flabbergasted. All of a sudden, all this stuff that just happened is going through his mind. How could this happen? But he numbly kind of picks up the phone and answers it, "Hello?" And lo and behold, it's Evan's neighbor. And he says, "Hey, I know you know that my mom has been sick lately, and, I've been kind of thinking that her bed downstairs, if I could move it upstairs and kind of situate her in this new bedroom, I'll be able to care for her easier. Would you mind coming and helping me move this bed?" And so Evan, of course, he says, "Yes, I'll be over in just a minute." He hangs up, and he just can't believe what just happened. But they're waiting on him, and so he puts his shoes on, and he slowly makes his way over to this house. Now, he just had the exact same conversation maybe an hour ago, but he just is sort of moving through the motions right now. It's almost like he's in shock. This can't be real. But he shows up at his neighbor's house, and he walks up, knocks on the front door, and Evan's neighbor opens the door. Evan enters, and who's there but Evan's neighbor's friend, this guy who Evan just met a little while ago, this priest, and now is once again meeting him for the first time. They shake hands, they introduce themselves, but Evan already knows who this man is, what he looks like, what his occupation is, a little bit about him. Like, he knows all this because this just happened a little bit ago. And so, Evan, he pauses, he says, "Hey, listen, he just sort of does this as a joke, but also to kind of test things. He says, "Hey, I'll help you move the bed upstairs, but I'm not going to help you move the armoire." And Evan's neighbor, he pauses and says, "How do you know about the armoire? I didn't even tell you about it yet." And so Evan says, "You guys aren't going to believe this, but," and he launches into this story about what just happened. And right away, the priest is very interested. He starts asking all of these questions about specific details and how it happened and what it felt like and what was the afterlife like. Like, he's asking specific details. Now, for Evan's part, he tried to answer him as best he could, but he told the priest, like, "Look, I didn't die. I don't remember an afterlife." He's like, "I remember it fell. I remember the pain of getting hit, of hitting the concrete, and then I woke up at my table. So I don't know anything about that." But he tells him all the specifics. And Evan's friend, he doesn't believe any of it. He's like, obviously there are vivid dreams, and people have all sorts of weird stuff like that, but there's no way. But then Evan goes on to say, "Okay, well, if I don't know, I've never been upstairs before, right?" And his neighbor says, "No, you've never been upstairs." He says, "Okay, so I couldn't possibly describe your upstairs bedroom then." And then his neighbor's like, "Obviously not." He says, "All right, if we walk up there right now, here's what we're going to find." And not only does he describe the layout of the room, but he describes all the stuff that's currently on the floors. He describes that headboard that's supposed to be sitting against the wall, all of the intricacies of the woodwork of the headboard. Like, he knows all of this stuff he can't possibly know, in addition to knowing about the armoire. And so he explains all of this And the three of them are just sitting there in stunned silence. And at some point, he helps them move the bed up. It goes exactly as it went before, breaking it down. In fact, it went easier because he knew how to break it down because he had just broken it down earlier that night. And so he breaks it down. He says, I'm not helping with the armoire. And then he heads home. And, he said for days he wanted to talk to somebody about it or just put it out there. But he needed a couple days to literally wrap his head around this concept that even though it seems impossible, he was given this second chance at life because impossible though it is, Evan went over to his neighbor's house to help him move an armoire, and somehow he died, only to wake up again alive with a second chance. And so that's going to do it for today's story. If you found yourself enjoying this story or any of the other ones on my channel, first-hand true accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, then allow the spirits to guide your play and chat to both the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload new content, which is every single day of the week. I upload shorts all 7 days, and then I upload long-form content Monday and Friday, all at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Second, all of my stories are true first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal. I'm constantly looking for new, fresh stories. It's the most important thing to keep my channel running. So if you or anybody you know has a story that you think might fit well on my channel, just please reach out to me on any of my social media, or you can comment below. Anything like that, get a hold of me, and then we'll find time to collect that story and potentially one day feature it here on The Orator. And so until next time, where you may see that the fire is stoked, you'll pull up your chair and settle in, and I'll have another tale to tell.